Salutations, everybody. As you could probably tell from my background, I'm not in my home studio this week. I'm traveling this week. I have a couple classes, one in New Jersey, one in Maryland, and I just actually finished teaching the class, so I apologize if I have issues with my throat. I usually do after teaching all day long, so I'm kind of hoarse a little bit, and I out of my throat lozenges that I normally take with me. I used them all up yesterday, and that's just one of them things. So, it's tried to dry run. I got some questions to answer, and as always, make sure you put your question in the chat box. Put your questions in the chat box as we go through today. So obviously, we always start off every single webinar with, what are you drinking? Put the answer in the chat box. What are you drinking? Hey, let me know in the chat box. Is the audio okay? Is the video okay? Because again, I don't have my normal production equipment here. I don't have my nice microphone and all that stuff. This is the microphone that's in the computer. So I'm hoping you can hear me okay. If you do, let me know. Shoot me a hands up. So what are you drinking? So to help soothe my throat, Chuck is drinking coffee tonight, though. Make sure you put in the comment box what you are drinking tonight, so that way we can kind of all know what's going on. It's kind of a regular thing that we do here. If you're new, I see you're starting to get some people come in now. Very good. Remember, put your questions in the chat box, and so that way you can make sure that your questions get answered. I only have like 5 questions tonight, so I might have time for some live ones. There are some pretty deep questions here tonight, so we'll see. We always do another thing that we do is we also do the acronym challenge. So here is the acronym challenge for tonight. Take a look at that. Our acronym for this week is BD. BD. What does BD stand for? If you know what BD stands for, put your answer in the chat box. What does it stand for? Our industry loves acronyms, right? The only thing it loves more than acronyms is it loves changing acronyms. I can't do my acronym challenge without my usual public service announcements. So here it is. Help control the acronym population. Have your acronyms spayed or neutered. We have enough acronyms. We don't need any more. Yeah. So what does BD stand for? Do you know? Do you know what it stands for? I do acronym challenges every weekday morning at 8:10. I have them pre-scheduled so everybody can kind of see them and answer them. So don't see any answers yet coming in the chat box. So I'll just go ahead and give you the answer to this one. Building distributor. Building distributor. It is the international equivalent to the IC. Okay, so it's the ISO kind of thing. So there you go. That's your acronym challenge. As I mentioned, I am on the road this week, teaching a couple classes, and I was thinking this week as I was traveling, as we start to kind of go back to a new normal, I wonder if, as an ancillary benefit, especially to my Patreon members, maybe I should let you know where I'm going, and if I happen to come to your area, maybe we can meet up for coffee somewhere. You've got coffee, I my coffee, and we'll chit-chat and talk and get to know each other. So if that's something you think might be interesting, let me know in the chat box. That way, it's something I can actually consider. I think it'd be kind of cool. Also, excuse me, it always seems that something goes wrong on my travel weeks. This week, as you know, if you know me, I know I had 2 German Shepherds, and my one German Shepherd is 10 years old, and my buddy Nico, and he took a pretty bad spill today at the house, or actually yesterday. We have wood floors, and he slipped and hurt himself, and we were really, really concerned. So if you're the type that prays, please pray for our bubby. He's a good boy, or send good wishes our way. Just I don't like I'm not being good. So anyways, moving on. Let me know if any of those things kind of interest you. Check the comment box. Anybody has submitted any questions yet? Nope, no questions. So I'll go ahead with the predetermined questions. And the first one comes from Jake from State Farm. No, not from State Farm. Jake from Kansas. And he says, Chuck, I have a long drive home after work. I want to try to make sure that when I finish work, I can get out quickly so I can get the work home. Do you have any tips to help me throughout the day so that I can get on the road quicker and get home to my family faster? Sure, I do. Oh man, sure I do. The first one is, and this is a big one, clean up as you go. Clean up as you go. Don't wait to the end of the day to clean up, because if you're cutting out box eliminators and you cut 50 of them that day, well, now you're gonna go to 50 rooms and vacuum. If you do some simple steps like put a piece of paper on the floor and let the dust fall on the paper, or put a trash can underneath where you're cutting, let that fall in. Clean up as you go, then you don't have to go back and spend all the time cleaning up after, especially in existing office spaces, right? The next thing as well is put away your tools as you're done using them. Don't, at the end of the day, just don't toss them in your box and then at the end of the day have to put everything away. Put them away as you go. So that way, at the end of the day, the only thing you got to put away is the last remaining tools that you have. So getting some more people coming into the room. If you can help us with your tips. So Jake wants to know, what can he do to make his cleanup go faster at the end of the day so he can get on the road and get home faster. So if you have a tip for him, put it in the chat box. Let me know, and I will put your comment out there. So put away your tools as you go along. And another thing that I used to do quite often, because with our spreadsheets, our timesheets, they were kind of involved. So they were broken down into tasks, and you had to track all your tasks all day long and all that stuff. Again, instead of waiting to the end of the day and thinking, oh gosh, oh man, what did I do today? Write it down as you go down things. So there you go. So it says here, so Patty's chiming in. Patty says, hi Chuck, first time listener. I couldn't find the event on LinkedIn. I can only find the past events. Glad to make it tonight. Well, welcome, Patty. I'm glad to have you here. Yeah, there was this show was kind of almost a last minute thing, because I'm normally on the road. Normally I got studio lights on me and a nice big microphone and great lighting in the background, all kinds of fun. I'm on the road this week. If you can't tell, I'm in my mobile studio in a Marriott hotel. So welcome, Patty. It's a pleasure to have you here. Make sure if you have time, check out our YouTube page. All of our stuff is pre-recorded and put there as well. So if you ever miss one of the LinkedIn Live events, if there's a glitch or something, they are recorded. And you can go to our website, letstalkcabling.com, go to the live podcast, and you'll live streams, and you'll find all of them listed there. You can go back and watch all the content that you desire. And I even have on the content the questions that were asked during that, so you can kind of scan down and see what questions interest you. So there you go. Welcome, Patty. Patty, you didn't answer. What are you drinking tonight? That's the first thing. As I mentioned earlier, I am drinking coffee. I don't drink on the road because I'm driving company rental cars and stuff like that. So I am responsible. I am very, very responsible. So Patty says she's drinking water. Very good. Water's good for you too, actually. Very, very good for you. And going back to my questions, the last tip I had for Jake on how to speed up to the end of his day processes, fill out your paperwork as you go, or if you don't necessarily have your timesheet to fill out, I used to have these little notebooks that would fit in my pocket. They were little spiral things, and I would literally write down everything I did all day long. So that way, at the end of the day, it wasn't me trying to rack my brains. I would just, and I would write it down. So that way, it's just a matter of scanning through that. Right. So Pat's chiming in again. I'm still boring, but I'm still on the clock. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, not a problem. Hey, drinking water is not boring. That's healthy. Yeah, that's healthy. That's good stuff to go. Hey, Patty, if you have a question, put it in the chat box since you're a first-time listener. I love first-time listeners. And did you send me a friend request on LinkedIn yet? Send me a friend request on LinkedIn if you have not. The next question comes from Mary in North Dakota. I bet you North Dakota is beautiful right now. I've taught classes in North Dakota. In the summertime, it's always beautiful up there. It's beautiful country, beautiful country. And I apologize because I've seemed to have lost my glasses up, so I'm kind of blind. So she asks, we have electrical codes. Why do we need standards? That's actually a great question. That's a great question. I tell it as in all my classes. A lot of people in our industry don't understand the difference between codes and standards. They don't. They just don't understand. They know they just know that one you gotta follow them, right? So if you had to describe codes in one word or, one word, that word would be safety. Actually, the funny thing is, if you go to Article 90.1 in the code book, where it talks about the purpose of the code book, there's two paragraphs, paragraph A and paragraph B. And I believe it's in paragraph B, and I think that's the adequacy clause. And I don't have the code book memorized, but it even says in there that the code book is for safety. It says it right there in the code book. It is for safety. You might even also hear the code book is for minimum quality construction. Minimum quality construction. Can you exceed minimum quality? Absolutely, you can. So code books are for safety. The code book does not care how the cable performs. It just wants to make sure that it's safe. And that's where the standards come in. Right? The standards come in because standards guarantee performance. If you follow the standards, then it's guaranteed that the cable is going to perform well. It's guaranteed that when the customers are uploading big, huge files, like if you got a photography company, you're uploading big photography files, or if you're downloading big documents like CAD drawings because you're a contractor or whatever, that it's going to perform, it's going to download it, and it's not going to bring down the network because of all the bandwidth. So the standards also is going to guarantee that the cable plant is going to be reliable. There's nothing more frustrating than when you hop on an internet or hop on your network and you get the big spinny wheel of death, right? Or the hourglass for the PC users. And it's just frustrating. It's frustrating. So the standard helps ensure that that's not going to happen. The standards also guarantee interoperability. Hello, George. What you drinking, buddy? George is in the house. George drinking coffee. What are you drinking, buddy? So it's okay that you can be late, George. You made it. That's all that matters. I'm glad you're safe. Hey, give me a call after the thing. I need to know how your surgery went, buddy. So the standards are also going to guarantee that the cable plant is interoperable. What does that mean? Interoperable means, so the standards are written so that the cable you install will work with every phone system out there, every computer system out there. Now, when you look at phone systems, we have all different kinds. We have new systems, old systems, and all that fun stuff. We have Centrex lines and all that fun stuff. So your older KSUs, key server units, they may only use 1 or 2 pairs to operate. But when we pull a cable, we're pulling 4 pair to that faceplate. And so a lot of customers will say, there's 4 pair in there. My system only uses 2 cables. So let's split out the jacks into 2 different jacks. Put 2 pairs on one jack, 2 pairs on the other jack. You can't do that per the standards, because if you do that, now that cable plant's only going to work with some phone systems, not all phone systems. So that's what's going to guarantee that it's interoperable. That's why it tells us all 4 pair have to land on 1 jack, but that's why. It's also going to guarantee consistency of design. I'm kind of looking at my notes here because I wrote down. It's also going to guarantee consistency of design. What that means is if you happen to go into a new customer's office to do some cabling because they hired you as a brand new contractor because they're not using the other one anymore, if you know the other contractor followed the standards, there are some certain things that you can know that will happen. Number one, your cables will not exceed 295 feet. You have at least 1 closet on every floor, right? So it's going to guarantee consistent design, and even within floors. And I remember one time, long time ago, probably 20 years ago, I used to do a lot of cabling for a law firm in the Washington, D.C. area called Venable, Bacher, and Howard, VBH. And they had an office in McLean, Virginia, an office downtown D.C., an office in Baltimore, and we used to do all the cabling in Rockville. We used to do cabling in all their offices. And I remember just, back then, you can go to any one of those offices, and the cabling was always a little bit different. And we were the one contractor did everything, and just everything got done differently in each one. So it's going to guarantee consistency of design. Now, as a new contractor coming in, again, it's going to help you do moves, adds, changes, and do upgrades quickly because they did indeed follow the standards. The biggest thing that you need to know about standards are they're voluntary. You don't have to follow the standards. Now, it's in the customer's best interest to follow standards for the reasons I just mentioned, but it's not a hard requirement, right? That you don't have to follow standards. You can split that cable into 2 different jacks if you want, but it's not, not in your best interest if you do that. I'm sorry, I don't know why I've got the hiccups all of a sudden. And then also, when it comes to standards, so quite often, I get asked all the time, what if there's a conflict between the code standards? What if the code say I got to do this, but the standards say I should do that? Which should I follow? Without actually seeing the direct thing that you're asking me about, I'm going to 99% of the time I'm going to say follow the standards. Follow the standards. And they probably think, wait, Chuck, codes are a requirement. They are. But when they write the standards, they always look at to see what the code book says, and then they'll either match it or exceed it because they want to make sure that that cable plant actually performs like it's supposed to. Because remember, I said the code book is for safety, not for performance. I'll give you an example, and I use this example in class all the time. The code book tells us that we can use staples to support cables. Staples! If you staple a cable, it's going to change the pairs within the cable. That's going to cause it to perform differently. Standards are going to say, yeah, no, don't use staples on high-performance data cabling. So that's the difference between codes and standards. That's why we have both, because the customer always has to follow the code book, always, period. No question about it. If they don't follow the code book, the electrical inspector is going to be all up in their business. They don't have to follow the standards. It's in the best interest to follow the standards, but it's not a requirement. So there you go. Question number 3. And this comes from Joe in Maryland. Joe says, help me explain to a customer why I can't put an IDF in a janitor closet. Well, an IDF is an old acronym in our industry standing for Independent Distribution Frame. It's now called the telecom room. Okay, the telecom room. Now, you're not supposed to put it in a janitor closet because you got to worry about things like moisture. Because usually in a janitor's closet, there's going to be a mop sink. You got to worry about chemicals because they're going to use cleaners and stuff like that. And some of those cleaners can be caustic, the copper. I mention this class all the time. It's funny, these questions kind of line up with class today, and I taught class today, so it's all fresh in my head. And also, more importantly, you've got to watch out for janitors. Now, I'm not saying janitors will deliberately do something wrong, but accidents do happen. They absolutely do happen. I'll give you an example. I mentioned that customer, Venable Baker and Howard, VB&H in DC. One time, and they were one of our anchor customers. They were one of our big customers. So when they called us up and said, Chuck, we're having a problem, we jumped. We're on our way. We jumped. So they called us up one day and they said 24 of our network users went down. You need to come out here immediately. Something's wrong with the cabling. So I jumped in my truck because of my customer, and I beat feet down the downtown DC. And I went in there and looked in the closet, and sure enough, it was a cable problem, an electrical cable problem, because what happened was the janitor, I guess, had gotten fired or had a bad day. He threw his cart in the closet. The cart hit the wall. Bam! The mop fell off the cart, hit the power cord out of the back of one of the routers, or one of the switches. And so, of course, all those users went down. So there you go. That's why you shouldn't use it. And so if you want to talk a customer into not using a janitor closet, by the way, if you put a telecom room in a janitor closet, there's a very good chance that you may not get a warranty on that. So that's another one. And the way to talk a customer into doing what you want them to do is explain to them how their decision's going to cost them more money, and then document that decision. That will usually talk most customers into doing what you want them to do. So Patty Schatz has the questions, because if anybody's interested, I invite you to join me at the Bixby Standards Committee or the Code Subcommittee. I will be attending the fall conference virtually. You might find it interesting. Patty, I'm kind of glad you mentioned that. When I went to the Bixby conference, the last live Bixby conference that I attended, which it was January of 2020 in Tampa, I think it was. Yeah. I volunteered to work for a couple committees. And I said, look, I want to do this. And I even talked to the committee people, and I put my name on their list, and I have yet to receive any information from those committees to help participate. I don't know if the committees were stagnant because of COVID. I don't know, but absolutely. And I thank you for putting it up there, Patty. Our industry will not function unless we get people volunteering in the committees and help drive this industry. So absolutely. Great input, Patty. Thank you so much. The next question is, and this is the last question that I had submitted from somebody ahead of time. So if you have a question, put it in the chat box. This one's from Mark in Portland, another beautiful part of this country. Mark says, I heard the term M.I.C.E cabling. What does M.I.C.E cabling mean, right? So if you're asking me about M.I.C.E cabling, Mark, that tells me you're probably dealing with a lot of industrial Ethernet cabling. Now, industrial Ethernet cabling is becoming increasingly more as machines and manufacturing are becoming more computer controlled, right? What that means is we're running cables to the devices so we can monitor tolerances when stuff is being built and production rates and how many units being produced in an hour and all that stuff. And those network connections are adversely affected by the environment in which it's sitting in, right? Now think about an industrial environment, right? It's not like your traditional office space. You got factory floors. I remember I did a project in downtown Baltimore. I can't remember who the customer was. And it was all I remember was they sold jacuzzis and pools. And so we were doing cabling. It was me and my brother. My brother is also in communications. And we were doing cabling. And I found out later on, after we'd been there for a couple of days, 3-4 days, the building was just absolutely I mean, the steel had like 12 inches of dust on them. And I'm like, where's all this dust coming from? This manufactures jacuzzis. And I got to talking to my contact, and I found later on that the building it was around before World War II. As a matter of fact, in World War II, they used to manufacture bombs in that building. So it's been around for a long time. So there's industrial environments that are dusty, and you got big machines, and they're moving stuff around, and they're doing all kinds of stuff. And that industrial Ethernet, like I said, it's going to be very sensitive to any kinds of delays caused by dropped or damaged data frames. So if they're relying on that data to make decisions on how to make changes on the fly for producing stuff, it's going to cause that problem because those packets could even cause the equipment to being shut down. And if it's shut down, that's a huge financial impact for the customer. Huge financial impact. Now, and here's another problem with that. It's in the commercial world, in the office world, generally when something's not working, it's either working or it's not working, right? You do get some intermittent problems, but not many. In an industrial environment, they tend to be almost always be intermittent problems. And no problem is harder to try to figure out than the problem that is not there when you go to test it. It's aggravating. It's just like when your car is broken. You take your car to the shop. Well, it acts up all week long. You make the appointment on Friday. Your car acts up all week long. You drive Friday to the shop and you pull it in. And guess what? On Friday, it's not acting up. That makes it hard for the mechanic to figure it out. Well, it's the same thing for us. Same thing for us. If the cable is not working and all of a sudden the day we get there to fix it, it's working, it's harder for us to troubleshoot. Not impossible. Doesn't mean we can't solve it. It just means it's harder. So getting back to your M.I.C.E, what is that? It's an acronym. M stands for mechanical, I stands for ingress, C stands for climatic or chemical, and E stands for electromagnetic. Now, the M.I.C.E standard has its roots in the ANSI 1105 and the ISO 11801-3. And they basically are used to classify harsh environments so that you can select the right kind of cable to install for that environment, right? So when you look at those 4 classifications, each one of those classifications has 3 levels of severity, a 1, a 2, or 3. The higher the number, the more affected it is by that for that environment. I'll give you an example. And I use this example in class all the time. So M is for mechanical, like vibration or shock. So an office building would be like a M1, an M1. What that means is there's very little exposure to vibration because it's an office building. Now, before COVID, about a year before COVID, I found myself in Pennsylvania, and I found myself with some extra time, and I decided that I wanted to go by and see how Harley Davidson's are built because you can do a factory tour. So I did what's called the steel toe tour at the Harley Davidson plant in Pennsylvania. And if you know me, I ride a Harley. Actually, I ride an Ultra Classic, which is known as a bagger, and this is the big bike. And I always wondered because the Ultra Classic has the really nice fenders on the front of them, and I always wondered how do they make that fender. And so when they were doing the tour, they asked us if there's anything we particularly wanted to see, and I told the lady, "How do you make the fenders for the Ultra Classic?" So they took us over, and there's this big machine. It was about 20 feet wide by 20 feet wide, big square. It was a 2,000-ton press. 2,000-ton press. So it was two pieces. So the top piece would come up, they put in a piece of sheet metal, and then that top piece would come down. Boom! I mean, when it would come down, the entire factory shook, right? And then when that thing would come up, they lift it out, and boom, there was a fender. It's just so cool. Anyways, if you've got an industrial Ethernet connection there, and you get that kind of vibration, you need to do something to mitigate that risk, right? Because it could literally cause the network to drop. It could cause the Ethernet connection to that device to drop, or nearby devices. So that's what M.I.C.E stands for. It's like I said, it's just an acronym, and it's really used for industrial kind of environments, not necessarily commercial environments. You don't typically hear M.I.C.E for commercial office buildings, but you will hear of them, like I said, in the industrial environments, right? So you got to worry about this kind of things, and that way you can plan for it. So that answers that question, right? So I ran out of questions, and it's 6:27. If you have a question, put it in the chat box. I do have a few minutes. I will sit tight. Let's check out the comment boxes, see what anybody is doing. So when Patty says in response to my thing, I think it may be because of COVID. Good. I was thinking maybe it's because I didn't take a shower or something. No, good, because I really did want to volunteer more at codes. I used to do a lot in the past on the committees. I used to do a lot in the past, and I'm kind of get back. Matter of fact, it's actually tied into my MBOs at work, because I told them I want to do that, and I keep getting asked them on my quarterly reviews. I'm like, I haven't gotten any emails yet. I want to help. So George says here, GigaPress. GigaPress. So what does that mean, George? You have to explain that to me. I am kind of slow. I've had a long week. Been doing lots of traveling this week. Clocked lots of hours. And for those who just came in, you may not have heard, I want to repeat what I said this morning. As I slowly start migrating back to my travel schedule and being on the road again, I'm going to offer to my Patreon members, I'll let you guys know when I'm in a particular area. And if I have time, maybe we can meet up for a cup of coffee. Now, I'm not buying you coffee. You got to buy your own coffee, because I am not full of money. And we can sit down over a cup of coffee, and we can talk about cabling. We can talk about career path, or anything that's on your mind that I can help you with. So Patreon, go to our webpage, look for support. That's one of the ways you can support the Let's Talk Cabling podcast. It does cost money to run that, and right now I'm burdening all that cost. I'm paying for the website, paying for the hosting fees, all that fun stuff. At some point in time, I need to start getting some support methods in there before my wife realizes how much it's costing us, because I'm afraid she might find that out. No, she knows. I don't hide nothing from my wife. She knows everything. I couldn't hide anything from me. All she's got to do is just look at me with them eyes, and I just melt. Okay, let's be honest. So there you go. So George has one more thing. Let's see what George says here. That sounded like the press. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I didn't know what that was called, but it was pretty interesting. Any other questions? This is your last 15 to 20 seconds to type in your question before we sign off and go to the next one. And of course, if you think of a question after I sign off, you can always submit them ahead of time to questions@letstalkcabling.com. Make sure you visit the website, letstalkcabling.com. Make sure you, I forgot to mention my last podcast I did. I interviewed Yaisha Hamilton. I call her an industry trendsetter. She's only been in the industry for 3 years. But this lady, it takes a lot to impress me. It really does. And this particular lady, oh my God, she's in my TDMM study group that I'm running. And she is just, for example, when we do the TDMM study group, every member has to come each week with 3 questions and 1 potential resource. And we kind of just pull them all together, and we kind of test each other. Consistently, she comes with 10 questions. Consistently, she comes with more than 1 resource. She's always well over prepared. She is studying for her RCDD and her DC exam at the same time. Check out that interview. She is absolutely fantastic. If you want to be interviewed, or somebody might want to be interviewed, hello, Mark. Make sure you go to www.bit.ly/LTC GUEST guest. LTC GUEST. GUEST. Yeah, guest. Yeah, exactly right. And there's a form there, put it in, and I'm looking for people to interview, so that way we can help get the content out there. So if you have a product or a service or or something, or some expertise that you would like to share, that's what this platform is about. It's about educating. It's about empowering. It's about encouraging, right? I don't know everything about our industry. I know a lot. And so, I guarantee some of you people have some specific knowledge that you might be able to help somebody. Put it in there and send me a request. Let's get you on the show. Let's interview you. Let's talk about it. Let's get that message out there so more people can be prepared and make this industry even better. Okay, making sure it's even better. Okay, so nobody typed in any questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign out. I got my 30 minutes clocked in. Next Thursday night, 6 p.m. will be the next live stream. Send us questions at letstalkcabling.com. So until next time, everybody, be safe.